Hi everyone, it's Lexi and I'm back for another video. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about my wedding and doing my wedding makeup look because I really kind of went outside the box a little bit for my wedding makeup and it's really fun to talk about. And I also had a Valentine's Day themed wedding. And I know this is going up a little after Valentine's Day, but I just think that this is a great time of year to talk about that. And no, I did not actually get married on Valentine's Day or even in February. I just got married in October and I had a Valentine's Day themed wedding. That's because I had to postpone, which was heartbreaking because the date of Valentine's Day 2021 was really important to me and my relationship and my husband. So that kind of sucked, but obviously we all know why. The most important thing is that I'm married, but I got my pictures back about a month ago when I was 6, so I haven't really done anything with them yet or posted them, but I went through them a bunch in the last couple weeks and I'm just like really inspired and I want to go through my makeup look. Before I can talk about my makeup look, I really need to talk about the vibe, the theme of the aesthetic of the wedding. Besides just Valentine's Day, it was specifically vintage Valentines. So like for instance, we used these real vintage Valentines as save the dates. We put them on a card that said like save the date February 14th and it was all handwritten, and then I had to go back and one line that out and put October 16th, which, you know, c'est la vie. And it kind of like, at first I wanted like kitschy Valentines, but the idea that solidified in my mind ended up being like Victorian Valentine, but with that sort of cut and paste paper craft vibe that they had in the Victorian times. I think that my two inspirations, I guess, would be Terry Gilliam's animation from Monty Python, or like the movie Intolerable Cruelty, the Coen brothers film, has this intro that's very similar. It's all very like Victorian, cut and paste paper craft, and I loved that vibe. And so this was one of the decor. I think this was the cake topper from my wedding. So it's like very, you know, it's intended to look like paper. And that was my vibe. This is a shadow box that my mother made for me. And so you can see we've got, everyone had different vintage Valentines, and you can see there was lots of like little decorations like this. These held chocolates and the little tag on it said what table you're sitting at, so everyone picked up their own little box of chocolates. This was the rice that was thrown over us. This was some of the invitations and such, and this was the program. So you can see it's very Victorian, and as such my style name that I came up with was Gibson Girl in Space.
Gibson Girl in Space.
So my two biggest inspirations were the Gibson Girl. And if you don't know what that is, that's like turn of the century, kind of Edwardian, like late Victorian, Edwardian era. These like big poofs where it's like all very natural and a rosy face. And then the hair is just up in the kind of this big updo. And then the in space part is that I was actually really inspired by the princesses or women in the Star Wars saga. So that would be Princess Leia in the first trilogies. She always had like these very architectural updos. And I think that was really inspired by like 1960s sort of futuristic architectural hairstyles. And then furthering that would be Queen Amidala in the prequel trilogy. And what I liked about that was how smooth and architectural the hair was, because my bridal look was all about the hair. I really liked how it was smooth. So I wanted it was smooth and not always just the whole head. It was often like a piece or situated. And I was also a little bit inspired by traditional hairstyles from Korea and Japan. And as such, my hair was decorated with this vintage geisha comb that I bought in Kyoto, and I believe it's turtle shell, but it is actually not vintage, it's antique. It was quite expensive. And I also had like this in my hair, and my hair was full of flowers. So it was all about the hair. The dress was in fact, when my bridesmaids came with me, they were like, this is a Princess Leia dress for sure. And I loved that. And it was a combination, it was custom made. It was a combination of two different dresses. from the designer Sophie at Voila. I have a whole video about getting it tailored and some of my disappointments with how it came out and it not really fitting me right, but I had it modified. You'll see in the photos it's different than the stock photos from the brand, at least the sleeve details and whatnot. My makeup was then inspired by the Gibson Girl look. I wanted something very round, something very pink in the cheeks, something without a lot of dynamic shading in the eyes and no contouring really. I did do a little bit of contouring and I'll talk about that. Because of that, combined with the fact that I have a light olive undertone that's very hard to match, I decided to do my wedding makeup myself. I know how picky I am, and I also have experience doing makeup for the camera, so I know that it has to be heavier, and I knew I wanted to walk that line between heavy enough that it looked okay in photos and I looked defined in photos, but not so heavy that in real life I looked like really, I don't know, like I'm wearing stage makeup, which I think is common with a lot of brides. And going back at my wedding photos, I wish I had done it a hair darker, but it's really hard to walk that line when you're in real life. Your immediate feedback is looking at it in person. In person, my makeup was quite like striking, and on the photos, it looks, I think, a little pale. So I might be trying to go a little bit darker with that today. So I want to get started then, and I'm just going to zoom you guys in. I'm going to be using my mirror, and you guys, I forget everything. So I practice this a lot. I even made that video about trying some base techniques that I ended up going with, and you can see I made a list so I didn't forget a single step. These are the primers I'm going to use. I got really specific for my wedding, and I had a not mattifying, but a more matte primer, and then I had a glowy primer. I actually don't think that this color was super great for me, so I got a new one, and when I mix them together, they're perfect. So I'm going to do that, because why not improve it a little? So I'm not going to talk too specifically about the brands I used, because I don't necessarily think that's important, but I may mention it. Sometimes I slip back into mentioning it, but if you do want to know, everything will be in the description box. I used the glowy primers on the cheeks and areas, especially like here and maybe here a little bit where bone structure, and then I used a more matte primer on the center where I wanted it to be kind of like brightened but not like greasy looking. I learned this technique that I'm about to do from Wayne Goss, and that is that I put primer on my nose, and then I'm going to put color corrector on, and then I'm going to powder my nose, and then I'm going to put another layer of specifically eye primer on. So I have this color correcting palette, and this was really great for me. I believe what I did is I put green color, just a hair of green color corrector on my nose, and the orange color corrector under on my eye bags. And I do have a couple like hyperpigmentation scars that are more bluish. So I've got one here and one on my face. Maybe I'll make a video someday talking about like my skin and the skincare problems I've had and stuff. But at any rate, that's what I did. And then I powdered my nose to really set that. I wanted the foundation and base product I'm using to really stick. And I've heard that powdering and then putting foundation on and using this whole technique was like very eye-opening to me when I learned it. Now I am applying eye primer to my nose, but I have to be careful not to, like, if I smear it too much, I'm gonna pick up what I've already put down and the color corrector and all that. So I'm trying not to, like, normally I just kind of smear primer on, but I'm trying to more dab it on. Foundation, okay. Next up is foundation, and thank God for Korean foundations. I would never be able to find a light olive shade if it weren't for that. I actually mixed two foundations at the time, although now when I do it, I think I thought the foundation was slightly too dark for me, and now I don't necessarily feel that way, but I'm trying to recreate what I did at the time. So I'm just mixing them together on the back of my hand. I think that's a really good color match for me. You guys, what do you think? This is technically a BB cream, and I knew that I would probably be better off for photos if I used a full coverage foundation, but I just didn't want to do that. I just really didn't want to. I just wanted to look, because I had that Victorian influence, I just really wanted to look more natural. Okay, so this is a pretty good foundation base for me. Then I went in with concealer. I have two concealers. I've got this under eye one, which comes with a brush. It's actually too peach for me, but that's why it works for under my eye, because it provides additional color correction, and it's really thin, and it's perfect. It's a dream. And then this one is really like thick and gooey and is great for spot concealing. I practiced this look in all different combinations of base and the order that I did them in so many times. If you're not someone who's super used to doing a full coverage look, it can go really bad really easily. So I'm really glad that I took the opportunity on my days off, pretty much for like months leading up to the wedding. I just did that a whole time. So while I'm doing this, I also want to just talk about the wedding itself. I've got most of my base down. Let me just spot conceal. I want to talk about the wedding itself. So I was super stoked to do this Valentine's Day themed, and I really wanted it like Victorian. So we got all this like beautiful china. We found someone who rents antique china, and that's really exciting. We worked with the stationery designer who did our invitations. We also worked with them to do all the decorations for the wedding. Maybe I've mentioned this briefly, but my wedding planner just sort of like took our money and ran. And that was the one that we had worked with from like the beginning of the wedding and shared like a lot of the ideas. In retrospect, she was barely doing anything. She was just basically sending introductory emails to vendors and then sort of like sitting in on our Zoom calls with them. But I was really thought that I was getting someone who would help me execute a vision. Anyway, she ended up just like taking our money and running. And so that wasn't great. Put on a little chapstick because my lips are dry. And anyway, so we ended up having to switch planners. So a woman who was very great at like executing what we wanted, but I didn't really have any support of like how to find like the proper vendors and everything, like who would be best to do what sorts of things. And she was wonderful and she did exactly what she was promised us, what was contracted and everything. But I really felt like I didn't make the best choices with who I had doing certain things, just because I went with the stationery person to make like the art and like things for the wedding also. And in retrospect, I really should have hired like an artist. But I didn't know like an artist who also can like do the printing on the types of paper and things that we wanted. I was really confused, and I don't think that we made a bad choice to use the stationary people to do that, but it was certainly outside of their wheelhouse, and it took a lot. There was like a lot of back and forth, a lot of like what's happening and you want what and all that. So it was difficult. Same with the flowers. Like I had no one. I wanted a big flower arch. I have to actually put on my makeup. What's next? Ooh, serum blush. Okay, I'm going to continue with the story about the flower arch, but before we start with the blush, if you guys saw my video where I was like blabbing about oh, I forgot to actually, no, I have to blend my spot. Oh no, blend my spot concealer. If you guys saw the video that I did about talking about advent calendars and like practicing some wedding makeup techniques, you'll know that I was inspired a little bit by the 70s again, how they didn't use, like they used blush to basically contour. It was called like blush draping. There's like different names for it, but they basically used blush to contour. And I really wanted a blushy look because that's kind of like the Gibson girl aesthetic. And it's like, there's no contouring. It's like blush. You want the cheeks to be really round. You want a, you know, like a really rosy, fresh feel. I really didn't want contouring. So I'm going to base, but I still did want a little definition like around the edge of my face. So I used this serum blush. It's like a dark purple. It's amethyst, or it's a purpley blush, which is really good for people with olive undertones. So I just put the smallest amount like ever on the back of my hand, just one drop of this serum blush. And I'm kind of nervous because this part, I haven't done it since the wedding, but before the wedding, I was like really in practice with doing this so that it looked good. But now I'm kind of, oh, see, like that's already too much. Now I'm kind of out of practice, but, oh shit. I don't know. It didn't quite look, I think I went a little heavy handed on the day of because I was worried about the photography, and I wish I'd done just a little bit less. I'm glad I didn't do like a lot of contouring with like actual contour, especially given my comfort level with it at the time. But I think I went a little heavy handed with this. It's really pretty because it's a serum. When you look at it from the side, it looks really dark, but then full on, it's really light. So that's kind of the look that I wanted. Plus I'm going to powder over it. So right now it's a little darker, and then some of that like darkness, I guess, will be blotted out by the powder. Okay, next is the contouring that I did do. I have an asymmetrical face. I don't know if you guys can see this, and it can be quite pronounced at times. I don't know, but I don't really have much like jaw shadow on that compared to this, and I just wanted to make the proportions look a little bit more equal. So I contoured right here just to define the jaw, just so that I looked a little bit more, I don't know, symmetrical. But it's kind of funny because I guess you don't see both sides of my face at the same time. Okay, let's talk about the flower arch. So I wanted a flower arch, but I wanted it shaped like a heart, and I didn't know where to go, how to get one. So I built one, which was like a huge project. Thanks, Dad. My dad and me and my husband worked together to do that. And I didn't know how to like explain to the florist what I want. I sent like pictures. It didn't end up looking quite like I wanted. I didn't want a whole bunch of greenery, which is really popular now, but I guess I didn't want no greenery. And because even though I went with carnations, because of their traditional like Valentine's Day vibe, it was still pretty expensive. And I feel like it was really skinny. I was under the impression that it would look more fluffed out, and then you wouldn't see like the geometric nature of the wood boards that I used. So but all in all, I liked that we had that. There was just a lot of weird things. Like everyone was like, well, how do you want to do the aisle? And I'm like, you guys how do people not know? Like, I don't know, what's normal? How do you transition? I don't know, there was just a lot of weird things. I also wanted to rent antique lights to hang from the ceiling, and I wanted flowers that came down closer to the ceiling, but the flowers were like way up high by the ceiling, and there was like 30-foot ceiling, so really didn't get like that. I wanted to bring the ceiling low, but I'm like, the florist did a beautiful job. This is the one thing that I've learned about weddings, and that is if you want something that's different or not what the current trend is in design, like floral design or invitation design or whatever, it can be really hard and people get really confused and they don't understand what you want. Even if you have numerous examples, they still are like, I don't get it. What do you want? Which is fair. I, am not the best maybe at communicating my ideas. So everything just looked like slightly different than I had hoped and I had pictured, but it was still beautiful. It was gorgeous. A little different than I thought. The flowers were a bit more primary pink than I thought, but it's totally based on what's available when you actually get married. You can see sample bouquets and you don't know until the day of. What is next? I don't even remember. What is next? Oh, cream blush. So I did the contour blush, and then I did a cream blush. I've always loved this super bright pink cream blush, and I think it like looks really good on my skin tone. Now I feel like it's peachier than it used to be. I know there's been some scandal about like they changed the color, and I swear it used to be more blue toned. I just opened this new tube. The previous tube I had, I believe, was a bit more blue toned, but so I always love the way it looks. Just like, I feel like it gives a lot of color to my face when I put it up here by my eye. And this is also going to get knocked down somewhat by the powder. It's looking very, hello, hi. Hi. We are about an hour away from his dinner time, so he has decided to just hang out with me to make sure that I don't forget that it's his dinner time. So that is about, I think, it might be darker on one side or the other, but I don't know if that's just like because my lighting is not symmetrical. Okay, well, we're moving on. The whole wedding in general itself was really, it went by so quickly. It went by so quickly. I feel like I didn't get to enjoy it. The food was delicious. I think the places where I spent the most time and consideration were the table design, because when you have people that are sitting at the table for that long, I wanted that moment where they walk in to the setup eating area and they're just like, oh. And so I feel like I achieved that. I spent a lot of time. So we rented, like I said before, we rented china from someone who rents out antique china and antique glassware, and it was all mix and match, all pink and red and white. There were some floral plates, some plates with white gold. There was like glass chargers. I spent a lot of time, and I would say a much larger percentage of the budget went towards that than I think other people spend. But I felt like for me, that was one of the most important aspects. Let's get to the translucent face powders. The first one was this translucent powder, which has a hair on the brush. Okay. When did I get blush on my chin? You guys didn't even tell me I had blush on my chin. Okay, so you see the translucent powder really knocked down the heaviness of the blush. But don't you worry, guys. I'm going to be putting a third blush on. So the other powder that I used was a violet brightening powder, again from this color correcting kit. And I just put that on the center of my face. I knew that this is more powder than I would normally use, but I really wanted that. I wanted a powdery look because I wanted it to be like feel old fashioned, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think that looks good. What is next? What is next? I keep losing the plot of what I'm talking about my wedding. I loved it. So the colors were burgundy and pink. I had these amazing shoes that I got from Dolce & Gabbana. Well, I got them secondhand from Vestiaire Collective, and they were burgundy and pink, and they said like amore, and they had hearts. It's perfect, right? And my husband had a chartreuse suit, and it was just the bridesmaids were wearing maroon or burgundy velvet, and his groomsmen were wearing like a blue teal suit, and I think they looked fantastic. Saying that I had a pink and burgundy wedding, and then my husband had a chartreuse suit, and his groomsmen wore like a teal suits, I think is kind of I don't know, you wouldn't think those colors went, but they looked really good. Where am I? Oh, powder blush. So now we're at the powder blush. So this is the third blush. So this one, it's like very nudie kind of colored. And for me, this is one of those blushes that just makes me look like glow from within. So this one brought the color down more diffuse on my face. I put it up, use it almost as a bronzer to color up the sides of my face. I've found that in general, most bronzers are just like way too orange for me. I really just wanted a really blushy look because that was what was considered beautiful in the Victorian era. I think I did put a little on my nose, but it could be, yeah, I think I did. Just like a little bit, just for some color. Okay, so yeah. It's looking, basically it's looking really heavy on person, but on the camera, it's looking more toned down, like what, you know, kind of happens, which is why people have really heavy makeup on their weddings, because they want to look good in the photos. So that is the third blush, and I think we're about done. I think we're about done with blush, and now we're going to move on to the eyes. So I made the controversial decision to wear like really like this color eyeshadow. It is not, so I want one of the Victorian look, but then I wanted like some of that 70s, some of that like pop of color to make it not just a plain blushy look. So I'll put some eye primer on, and I'm trying to remember. I think I actually put a little blush on my eyes. So let's set that just to give them a little bit of color. Like, I don't even think it looks like my eyes are blushy. Just kind of set them and give them a little bit of color. Then I did things really in reverse. Oh, I'm looking very blushy. I like it though. I've got these colors. These were pulled from an old Urban, this one was pulled from an old Urban Decay palette, and I'm like mega pan on it, this color in particular. And then this is a single I got from MAC, but so I used this sort of greenish side of the translucent, it's like a dual like split pan. And then I put that all over the lid up to the brow bones. Now this look right now is going to be influenced by the fact that my eyebrows are really thin right now. And then I'm going to be layering the matte shadow over it. I don't know. I practiced a lot, and that was what I was really liking the look of. I actually was kind of torn between this sort of robin's egg sort of blue and then a traditional powder light blue that is actually, I think, kind of like trending right now. But I got the advice of my bridesmaids, and they said this one suited my skin tone better. So we went with that. So then I just put this matte powder, just sort of, I wanted it just to look very, I don't know. I feel like for Valentine's Day, the colors are pink and red, but then with blue thrown in there. For me, I had a lot, it was mostly pink and red, hearts, cherubs, all that. But then I had a lot of bluebirds thrown in there just to give it more color. And also, I don't know, I just really like that imagery. So that is what my eyes looked like. I think I put a little blue under here. I'm trying to remember, you guys. I don't remember. And then I did do a little bit of shaping. So I took this palette, is pretty good for me as a neutral palette. I took this as like a greeny gray. So I just did this to define a little bit my outer, just like this cool sort of cool tone, and make it look more shadowed, make it so that my, ooh, that's too much. So my eyelashes kind of like cheats the idea of like your eyelashes being heavier. It's like, oh, your underneath your eye is shadowed from them. So I've actually learned, I feel like my eyeshadow technique in the last few months has really like leveled up. And I've realized that I wasn't bringing my eyeshadow down far enough under my eye. So I know I kept it kind of tight the day of the wedding. So I don't even know if you can even see that I had shadow under the eye. Yeah, so that's kind of the look. What is next? Now we're gonna do my eyebrows. So I used 3 products. I used an eyebrow pencil that's based on a, like a pressed powder pencil. And then I used like a, I wanna say like a jelly. It's not gel, but you know, it's like a traditional sort of like eyeliner, eyebrow pencil, like cakey, gooey material. I'm not describing it well, but you guys know what I mean. I'm not one of these women that sharpen their pencils every time they use them. I feel like that you go through the pencils so fast. Maybe my face will fall off from some sort of infection. This one especially looks really dark. I think I did it darker than I did on my wedding. Like I said, my brows were much more naturally filled in. So I definitely went with a more natural look, and I'll put some pictures of me. I don't have any pictures of just like me in my dress, which is a shame. So first I did that. Then I did this little like gel style pencil to fill in the tail and just sort of, okay, so this is much more of a brow shape than I had. I feel like it's giving my face like a harsh look, but this was just because I can't change the way my eyebrows are. At this point, I'm gonna go in with my first of 2 setting sprays. I watched this video from Wayne Goss about setting sprays, and he really opened my eyes to the fact that setting sprays claim to do 2 things. One is make your makeup sort of blend into each other and settle into the skin, and one is like cement it in place, like hairspray it, but makeup, right? So this first one is the melting type. If I use this after I've put on my eyeliner and my mascara, it will make those run, but it makes all of the base, everything like just melt into each other really well, like in a really nice way. So I'm gonna put this on and let it dry, and then we'll go in with the eyeliner, mascara, all that mumbo jumbo, and then we'll put on the one that like sticks everything in place. Yeah, because he's definitely said, and this makes sense, the products are the same that are gonna like dissolve your makeup basically are not the same as what's gonna make it stay in place. So I'm waiting for my face to dry, and I wanna talk more about just like my final thoughts on the wedding. I was distraught at how much work it was and how uphill of a battle it seemed for something that is such an industry, and that's because I wanted something that wasn't standard. More and more brides are shifting to all-in-one, like all your vendors do multiple things, and I get why. It's way easier, but because I wanted, they tend to be like kind of like whatever look is like really trending at the time. And there were aspects of my wedding that are trendy, you know, I'm not saying I'm like so different and unique, but because for instance, I wanted vintage or antique china and glassware, I couldn't just go through my caterer, which is what a lot of people do. The caterer gets the rentals and does all that. And like times I buy 100, we also did the sound ourselves. So we had a friend set up all the sound equipment. We owned the PA, we owned like a lot of the DJ equipment. And then we hired a DJ who doesn't normally do weddings because we wanted a mix of new wave and soul music. It's like very specific. So we had to get someone that was a DJ that does like events. He does like soul night at a dance club and stuff like that. So we had to go a little outside of the box, and my wedding planner, the second one we hired, was amazing. I saw her on the day of the wedding and she was just like sweating. She worked so hard. There were so many vendors. Everything had to be like hung and mounted, and I walked in and I almost started crying because it was so beautiful. I hope I didn't come off before as making it sound like I was so unhappy. Just that like I was surprised at how much time and detail I had put into having this vision, and then it was different, but it wasn't different bad. It was just different, and it was beautiful, and I was so happy. Like I said, I almost started crying when I walked into the wedding, like right before the guests showed up. I got ready at a hotel and then had to like transition to the venue, and they had like a little bridal area, and that's where I put on my dress. But I almost started like crying when I walked in. I had to be like, no, my makeup. Yeah, so it was gorgeous, and it was the Valentine's Day of my dreams in October. Anyway, I'm gonna put an eyeliner on now. I use 4 different types of eyeliner. I use like an eyeliner pen for defining the wing. I use this and it's very liquidy and it's got this sponge tip. It's terrible for getting a defined wing, but when you take it and you put that sponge tip sideways along the base of your eye and it's like very liquidy, the black liquid like kind of like pools down in amongst my eyelashes. I think for me, it's really noticeable. Like there's always like this strip of skin between, if I just use a pen, you can see, my eyelashes aren't super thick. You can see like the skin in between the individual eyelash hairs. And so this kind of soaks down into there and colors that dark. And then this is for the inner waterline on the top and this white one on the bottom. I also had eyelash extensions, which I don't have now. So I'm going to put on some falsies to kind of mimic that effect. I did like a cat eye shape. I wish I had just actually worn falsies. I actually love the look better. And I wish that I had just done that because it would have saved a lot of money and time. But it is what it is. And then I put on 2 different types of mascara, both waterproof, one that's like thick and clumping and one that has a really fine small wand for the bottom lashes. It's like a super tiny wand. So I don't think I can do those and like talk. I need both hands. So I'm going to do that off camera and be back in a second. I'm going to do eyeliner and mascara. I'm pausing right here mid eyeliner to talk about my eyeliner shape that I did. So I have very round eyes. Because of that, I find like a cat eye shape, like a true cat eye, is not always very flattering on me because it battles the natural shape of my eye. So I went with what's called the puppy dog look, which is where they come down a little bit more. I think that just works better with my eye shape. But anyway, I just thought I would like talk about that. Okay, I am back. I've got the I've got false eyelashes on. I don't like these false eyelashes. I think that the regular ones I have, they're cat eye, I can't find. So this is what I put on. I'm not a huge fan. I don't really like the shape it gives my eye, but this is not like what I look like on my wedding anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I had like different eyelashes. So I've got the eyelashes, I've got the eyeliner, I've got the mascara. The last step is my inner waterline, and I just did the black on the outer, like really just out here. And the inside. If I do it on the middle, my eye blinks and waters instantly. So you can't really see the center anyway. So I just did the inner and outer corners. And then the white is like an old trick to make your eyes look bigger or whatever. This is something I have to touch up. It doesn't stay. There we are. I think we're almost done. Okay, we're almost done. So at this point, this is where I stopped. Put on one of these like sheer sort of tinted like chappy stick thing. Oh, this is the wrong color, but this is also what I use. I cannot find it. I use the Clinique Chubby Stick Super Strawberry. I will tell you guys all that. It's the most amazing, overrated or underrated product. It just looks like your lips are just beautiful and pink. Anyway, so this is the sort of look I had. And then we have our last setting spray. Okay, let me put my earrings that I got married in. So I did a kind of, you know how people kind of change dresses before the ceremony? I did something similar in that I changed my accessories and I put on lipstick between the ceremony and the reception. That's what I meant to say. They changed dress for the reception. I didn't do that. Let me pause and do my hair real quick. I just did a very terrible job putting it up, but I just wanted to give the effect of the earrings. I wore this necklace for the ceremony. Let me zoom you guys out. I wore this necklace. No, I didn't wear this necklace. I can't find the necklace that I wore. I put it somewhere safe. It was actually 2 necklaces, but it was very similar. It was a heart and then a little ruby charm that my husband had given me, and the heart was from when I was a kid. They were a little shorter, so this was the vibe. A white dress, hair up in a poof, big pink earrings. This is the look, right? And then after the ceremony, I changed my jewelry and I put on lipsticks. Let me do that. So I've got the jewelry on, and let's talk about red lipsticks. I bought like 3, I think, red lipsticks in preparation. My hair looks like terrible. I look like Beethoven. I don't know what I was thinking, but I've narrowed it down, and my main contenders were Corella from NARS and this red one from Ritual de Fille called Written in Blood. This one's matte, and I prefer a matte. I actually have several matte lipsticks. I also bought Lisa Eldridge Velvet Ribbon, and it was just a bit not blue enough for me. ColourPop, I've got in the Villains collection, they released a red one that is like the perfect color, but the formula is terrible for me. It's very silicone-y. So this was a close approximation that I found. I now, by the way, I now own like 9 red lipsticks. It's ridiculous. This was Corella from NARS. And it had the right blue undertone, but I just wanted it a bit deeper. So I ended up going with this one from Ritual Defeat, which is not matte. And I wish I'd gone matte, but this isn't terrible just because a matte would have had more staying power. And also this smells bad. Like it smells like a citronella candle. It's not great. And I had to keep touching it up. And there is lipstick on my wedding dress. I don't know if it's mine. It's somebody's. It might be mine. I don't know. Did I use lip liner? I think I used lip liner, but I only had like 5 minutes to do this. One of the other reasons I didn't put this on until after the ceremony was that I had a French silk, like very opaque veil over me, over my whole face, and I didn't want to risk getting lipstick on it. Okay, I changed my hair. I took the robe off. Obviously, the day of the wedding, I didn't have a big clip, but it is what it is. For today, it doesn't matter. And this was the like reception look. So I don't have any like posed pictures of me like this. I didn't want a lot of photography. Like we wanted to see each other for the first time while walking on the aisle. And the reason why that's not, like, a lot of times these days people do like a first look. And I've learned that that's purely because wedding photography has become like this like epic 5-hour-long photo shoot, and it was really important to us that the first time we saw each other be walking on the aisle. So we only had the cocktail hour to do wedding photography, and and because I didn't put on my gown until I got to the venue so that it didn't get dirty walking through downtown Seattle, that means that I didn't have any like shots of just me in my dress, because the bridal suite was like a tiny dark little balcony with like a whole bunch of gear and sound equipment stored in it too. So I don't really have a dress of me, like a picture of me just like in my dress. And then the photography that we did in between the ceremony and reception, I had my ceremony look on because I was wearing my veil still. And yeah, I don't really have a lot of posed looks like this, but this was how I looked for the majority of my wedding. And I'm in love with this look. I'm just like looking at myself in the mirror, and I love it. So thank you guys so much for staying with me through this long makeup journey today while I reminisce about my wedding. I hope that you had a great Valentine's Day, whether that was spending time with someone special or just spending time with the most special person in your life, which should be you, right? Love yourself. And I love all of you guys. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.